Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. This is Sree Iyer and I am with Sridhar Chityala ji, episode number 42 of Weekday News Capsule. Namaskaram Chityala ji. Now, how are you?
Namaskaram ji, good morning to you. Pretty good, sir. Thank you. It's a cloudy Monday here in New York after a beautiful Saturday. So we're looking forward to another exciting week.
Yes, indeed. And let's start off with the United States presidential election. Still a lot of activity happening there. Perhaps you can walk us through what happened over the weekend. And there are some things coming down the pipe today also. So maybe you can give us an idea for what to expect, sir.
Right. I think there are three important events this particular week kicking off today. Today, Arizona legislature would be hearing the evidence presentations by the Trump team. Jenny Ellis and Rudy Giuliani will be conducting that. That is being heeded to by state legislature. So we'll begin to. This is the second one after the Pennsylvania. So that's one activity. The second activity that over the weekend that happened, which is a big success for Sidney Powell, is that the Georgia court has now ruled that for at least 10 days, it has issued a restraining order not to erase and not to destroy any Dominion server data. Initially, it was not guaranteed to Sydney, so she took it to the courts. She wants to make sure that there is an independent and objective forensic evidence investigation. The forensic evidence that she conducted based on her teams seemed to confirm her findings, which was the basis of the 30-point submission. So that's the second activity that goes on. We could also see this week, as I mentioned yesterday, Pennsylvania, the Supreme Court declined the Patricia McCulloch, the junior court verdict, which is namely that the invalidation of the postal ballot votes and potentially taking it to the state. So that's being contested. So that'll go to the Supreme Court. Then December 2nd, we will be in the Nevada court hearings in Carson City. I had mentioned a legislature, or I had mentioned some other by a slip of the tongue. It's a Carson City Judge Russell who will be hearing on all these fraudulent ballots, as well as the abnormal, what they call intrigue and weird data changes that took place in Nevada. So therefore, those are the four events. We will also see what happens in Michigan, where there is a case filed by Sidney Powell. We'll also see whether the recount results has not been announced in Wisconsin. We'll see what the outcome of those recount that completed yesterday and what the next steps are. It could be going to the court, as President Trump said. So this is the quick election overview.
So it also appears that the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, has asked for some evidence from data scientists on how they came about their conclusions regarding the statistical abnormalities that they found.
Indeed, it's fascinating. Thank you for asking that question. This Independent Research Bureau, which has provided data around the abnormalities and the variances. Some of these people are ex-FBI, ex-DHS, ex-CIA, ex-National Security Agency, NSA, etc. So they have asked for the data to be given and the research data to be given to them and substantiate what they have observed. Who knows what will happen after that? Or I don't expect much out of that FBI stuff, right? So they may see and say, okay, but everything is actually boiled down to Sidney Powell. The case that what she is doing is something remarkable for the United States. It doesn't matter whether you're a Republican or Democrat. At the end of the day, the shoes can flip on either side. So therefore, what you want is an objective and a transparent kind of a voting system, which is not influenced by external actors. So that's what you would want. So I think that's what she is doing is, to me, the most decisive or most impactful. Then what's going to happen in the Supreme Court? Is this going to Supreme Court, or is this going to be resolved in state legislatures in terms of the electoral college votes? Because that changes the presidency from one person to another person. So that's what I see.
Sir, the next topic is Jared Kushner is currently visiting the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and Qatar with his team, and also that the USS Nimitz has now been deployed in Persian Gulf. This is something that was being stated as a rumor, but now it is confirmed, isn't it? So, what do you think Kushner is up to?
Well, there's a series of things that have happened in Iran. First, there was the elimination of the Al Qaeda leader, who seems to have been hiding there for quite some time. Suspicion was around the Israeli intelligence. The second was the scientist, the key nuclear scientist who was assassinated. And there were perceptible rumors that they are basically re-enriching the uranium in the nuclear plant. So it is conceivable that there has been a lot of news that there could be an attack, and Israel was being prepared for potential consequences stemming from that attack in the Iranian some of the Iranian assets. My Nimitz presence only reconfirms the planning must have been going on for some time. Jared Kushner's visit, who was supposed to be the special advisor on diplomacy and other matters to the president, visiting Saudi and Qatar. Qatar is an ally of Iran, and Saudi is an adversary of Iran. So therefore, it's going to be. We use the word loosely ally of Qatar. Right? Qatar, Turkey, and Iran have been kind of looking at natural gas and other stuff, right? So Qatar is much more business aligned type of mindset. So I think the Jared Kushner visit is probably in preparation for some activity that is likely to occur almost very shortly. I won't use the word imminent, but something in the visible future.
So, they're expecting some sort of retaliation from Iran for the deaths of its top nuclear scientists.
Possible, and that's one thing that there would be what they call. Iran has yesterday released a statement that there would be cautious reciprocal response. That was the statement issued by the Iranian Republican Iranian army or the Iranian government, whichever they're all one and the same. But it's also whether United States is doing a preemptive strike to protect. Because, in the case of Biden in the election policies, he's been talking about going back to the Obama policy of, delimiting the sanctions and giving them some kind of controlled, monitored access to reestablish their facilities. That was not the case that's not the policy of Trump, and to a great extent, Israel. Israel sees that as potential existential threat.
Next, we take a look at what is happening in the stimulus side. A lot of people are going to lose their benefits at the end of the year. And is there any movement now that there is going to be a new Congress and perhaps a realigned Senate? What is going on right now, sir? Any developments in that direction?
Well, it's fascinating because there's a lot of noise that's being made by the markets and a lot of noise being made by some of the central bank stalwarts and a lot of noise being made by what you call agencies which are focused around a lot of distressed and affected people. So even on this weekend, they said millions of people are going to be impacted because the bill runs out. The unemployment extended unemployment benefits and et cetera, would be kind of cut. So that really flows into a large number of people. Already there was a complaint, pretty close to 9 million people were not beneficiaries of the first stimulus package. The second stimulus package was meant to, in fact, second was the extension of the small business ones. The third was meant to address that specific domain. So what you're going to see is that a lot of noise rising, and now worse, we also have what you call as random and selective shutdowns that's happening across the country because of the rising COVID. Democratic states taking one posture and Republicans taking another posture. So you have that. So what's going to be the situation from the treasurer point of view? Treasurer has taken the money and put it into a reserve, the $459 billion. So what's he saying? Congress, go back to the Congress and get an approval from the Congress, then the money is available for release, recognizing that there is an imminent need. So whether the bickering will stop and the two groups will come together and come to a resolution and go to the president for an executive order or passing an order remains to be seen. But there are discussions going on between Schumer and Pelosi and Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy. And I think Mnuchin is aware. I feel something will happen.
Thank you, sir. And let's take a quick look at what is happening between India and Japan. I was under the impression that India was going to get the 5G technology because of its Quad arrangement, but now India is looking to Japan to get some of these things fulfilled. Is there a slight reset in India's attitude towards America? Do you see that?
No, I see that. I see more. I see two things. One is China's brinkmanship is one thing in the region. The second is the unknownness of Biden's policy. Okay, Biden. If I have to say Biden, Obama, the Biden administration more and more looks like Obama 3 version 3 because yesterday they announced the communication director, Jane Eski, and so the story is that more and more it looks like so. His statements is more Indo-Pacific. The word continuation of Quad and Quad as a strategic has not been mentioned by Biden. Now that doesn't mean it's not the case. It just simply means that whether there would be some kind of a policy reset because Quad was considered hostile to the Chinese mindset because it is defending against the Chinese incursions from Pacific to deep into Indian Ocean. Even if you remember, we talked about the first fleet being located in Singapore, right? Or a new first fleet to be located in Singapore. So what happens? So Japan is acting as a buffer to make sure that there is no room for Chinese to come in and dump because it has several mechanisms by which it can dump. As you know, some states which are Congress party can be sympathetic, whether they could violate some norms and bring, which are sympathetic to China, will not happen. But the story is that Japan is saying, I'm stepping in to be the anchor just in case there is any changes as a continuation of the Quad. So Japan is clearly emerging from the Quad, from the Asia side, to be whether Mr. Suga will rise just like Mr. Abe remains to be seen, but certainly showing initial inkling, just as Mr. Emmanuel Macron has clearly now emerged as the leader and with support from Boris Johnson, because Boris has been inflicted with COVID, so he has been less active relative to, he's more active on the paper, but less active in terms of the interactions and so on. So you have more Emmanuel Macron stepping up, and almost Germany is silent in many of these efforts. So Japan is saying, we are with you on all facets, capital, infrastructure, as well as the next generation technology cooperation.
Thanks for that clarification, sir. Let's take a quick look at Brexit. The exit of Britain from the EU is almost upon them now, isn't it? So you need to see some action happening on that front too.
I think that the guy, the name escapes
Tony Abbott?
No, one of them contacted the chief negotiator. Contacted, I think Tony Abbott. One of the chief negotiator contacted COVID, so he was away for a week. I think he's back, week or 10 days. So he's back. So they expect resolution, and they are not expecting extension or any further concessions. EU granting any further concessions to Britain, and Britain to wind up and complete as promised by end of the year.
Sir, I'm sorry I missed out this one. India seems to have busted a money laundering racket being run by ISI and the PLA modules in India. This appears to have been funding a lot of agitations. Is this now suspected to be funding the current farmers' agitation too, sir?
That part I don't know, but certainly that the arrest of the Chinese national who is apparently somebody in the closer to the Tibetan border, within the China-Tibetan border, I mean, Tibet is part of China. I meant just as a province. Hails from there. He has been fairly active, and they have conducted a raid and seized lots of things. And the initial discovery is that there's a lot of data pointing out whether the Chinese money is flowing through ISI, PLA. They use the word PLA money is flowing through ISI. We had this particular person into splinter groups to create unrest and problems, or whether it is directly PLA giving it to the guy. Obviously, he's not. This person is not alone. He's a leader. He seems to have a network. I think more details, but this substantiates the point that China is very active to make sure, as is the case suspected in the United States and several other. Nepal is another example where they seems to be using these types of means to create disturbances.
And thank you, sir. And that brings us to a close on today's news capsule. Would you like to touch upon the market just quickly, sir?
The
Moderna
market,
success.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, sir. Thank you. The markets are opening around Asia tepid. The markets are because of the rising COVID cases. Everybody is reliant on the stimulus. In United States, the markets are likely to open 130 to 130, appear to lower. Again, driven by lack of stimulus and COVID, and still the markets are at a record high relative to where we started and relative to where the markets were through the last 4 years. So therefore, I think there's positive momentum in the markets, but you may begin to see some downward movements, continued downward movements, nullified by lack of stimulus, but to a great extent, offset by the arrival of the vaccines. The vaccines will begin to flow out, which we discussed. Just today's headline is Moderna now confirms that their vaccine is now greater than 94% effective. In terms of, they were 90%, now they're greater than 94% effective, and asking for expedited approval to get into the market.
And that brings us to a close of today's news capsule. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same location, and with Sridhar Chityala ji. Namaskar, and see you tomorrow, sir.
Namaskar and thank you, and see you all tomorrow.